6.3. Slope, intercept, form of a line. All right, slope, intercept, form of a line. This is the stuff you guys know, and you use more than anything else. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. I need that. I'm too zoomed in. Taylor, I'm going to really need you to stay focused, okay? Because remember, we've got to get through this. Okay, so that is the formula that you should, by the time we're done, be doing in your sleep. You know this. It's all the other things. I mean, you are going to get to a point where you don't even have to study it that much because it's been drilled in your head. The other formulas and stuff aren't used as much, so kind of having to, put a little bit more effort into it. But this, to be able to graph a line, you need to know this formula. Okay, everyone remember this from last year? All right, so recap. What is M? It's all right, it's the slope. What is B? You don't remember what it is, Gabby? It is the y-intercept. And I'm going to need you to put 2 stars by that. Because the y-intercept is probably one of the most important things in this formula. It's actually where you start. And I'm going to even say start. And that's an arrow. Start. You start, when you're graphing a line, you start with the y-intercept. And I have students all the time forget that. They start with the slope. No. Always start with the y-intercept. The y-intercept, which is your B, is sometimes written, especially when you're doing IXL, in the form of X and Y. Form with X being 0. Because it's crossing the y-intercept on the y-axis, and x is always 0. But that's not quite important. That's just if you get confused, like on IXL. When you're done writing, put your pencil down so I know you're done. Okay, so let's get started. Example, because I'm pretty sure you guys remember some of this. You just need a refresher course. Let's say the y-intercept is 4 and the slope is -0.5 or 1/2. Okay, I've drawn my Cartesian plane. What is the first dot I put on my Cartesian plane? With
the B.
The B. This is your y-intercept. It will always be first. This is first. That's what you do first. I cannot emphasize this enough. Your first dot, the very first thing you do is you find your y-intercept. Okay, so the y-intercept is 4. So I'm going to go, and it's a positive 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. My first dot is going to be right there. So when doing this, you find the y-intercept, you put a dot on the graph or the Cartesian plane where that y-intercept is. I cannot emphasize that enough. That's the first thing you do. Now, your slope is -1 over 2. Or remember, the negative can go with the 1 or it can go with the 2. Remember, this is rise over run. So I'm going to start at that y-intercept, this dot. And I'm going to go down 1, because that's a negative, and then that's a positive 2. I'm going to go 2 places to the, oh, I should put my glasses on. 2 places to the right. And then you connect the dots. And I'll connect it in red so you can see. And you put arrows. Any questions about this? So the first thing you do is your y-intercept. You put that dot right there, that y-intercept. Then you start using that y-intercept, you do your slope. If it's up and over or whatever. And if you want to do up and then -2, it would fall right there on line. See what I'm saying? Any questions on this example? Okay. And I do have to introduce this. You're not going to have to worry about it too much. If the slope is positive, the line looks like this. I don't think I'll ever ask a test question that involves this. If the slope is negative, the line looks like this. Okay. Some of you are going to memorize this. If the slope itself is positive, like the whole quote fraction, then your line will look similar to this. If the slope is negative, you have a negative quote fraction, the line's going to be going that direction. If you're capable, if you are like, man, I'm never going to remember that, you're fine. You don't need to worry about it, okay? Some of you are going to be able to memorize that, like instantly. You just got that brain. So anytime you have a problem that has, and look, this is a negative slope, right? Negative fraction. Look at the line. The line's going this way. And look, it's going, it says the slope, if the slope is negative, your line's going to go in that direction. So if you have this memorized and you have this or an equation or something, look at your slope. If it's negative and you graph it and your line's going that way, you know you've made a mistake. See what I'm saying? So this is kind of like one of those things to check you if you did the problem right. Grading some of y'all's graphs. Some of y'all's lines from yesterday and everything should have been going this direction, and they were going this direction. You made a calculation error, okay? If you memorize this right here, it will help to keep you in check. If the slope is negative, it's going to be going this direction. If it's if the quote fraction's positive, it will always be going that direction. If you never remember this after this minute, you will be just fine. It will not make or break you. Any questions? So you still taking notes? Okay. All right, open your books. Let's get going. Examples. Page 248. 248. Taylor, you have a question?
It's a random question.
No.
Okay.
All right. Everyone there? All right. Read the directions, Emily.
State the slope and y-intercept of each linear equation.
Very good, Emily. Okay, so it says state the slope. So they're looking for the slope and the y-intercept. Now, keep in mind, the form is y equals mx plus b. I would almost suggest you write that for every problem so you can compare it. Remember what the m is, and remember what the b is. Okay, so number one, Emily, you're my first victim. Y equals 3x plus 4. So, Emily, do you know what the slope is? Okay, let's look. Look here. Here's my formula. If I were to write the formula underneath, do you now know what the slope is? Yes, ma'am, it's 3. Okay, y'all see that? Y'all see that's what I'm talking about. If you look at it like this, sometimes it can be confusing. If you take the formula and write it right underneath, there you go. It becomes more clear. So you're correct. The slope is 3. Emily, what is the y-intercept? Yeah. Not a trick question. Remember, y-intercept is b. You got to have that memorized. You got to have that m is slope, b is y-intercept. Are you having a problem back there? And yes, Emily, it's 4. So there's your answer. And that's all I expect from y'all. Your book is going to want you to write your y-intercept looking like this. And you'll see that on IXL. That they write the y-intercept with x being 0. That's what I mentioned earlier in the thing. But you know what? I don't care. Write it with b. As long as you know these two are the same thing, you're good. Any questions about that? All right, let's do another. Y equals negative x. Oh, this is going to be good. Now, I'm going to go ahead and write the formula underneath. Taylor, you want to volunteer for this one?
Sure.
All right. So, Taylor, what is my slope?
-1.
Yes. The slope is -1. Because is there a number right here with this? And so we always assume there's a 1 there if there's no number. So yes, the slope is -1. Does everyone see that? So you see that? Okay. So my next question is, what is the y-intercept?
0.
Yes, the y-intercept, which is b, is 0. Because is there anything right here? Is there anything there? Emily, is there anything there? No. So it's 0. Exactly. Very good. So if you were to graph that, I'm going to show you what it looked like, because you will have problems like this.
Can we get right this minute?
Yeah. You're going to have problems like this, and you're going to be like, well, I don't understand where do I start. Well, let's see, Cecilia. What is the first thing I start with? B, the y-intercept. Y'all are going to be so good. Okay, so yes, if my y, you start here. This is first. Oh, I get so excited. Okay, so Cecilia is correct. It's 0. So here's 0, right? Now we do our slope. And the slope is -1, so that's really like -1 over 1. Your rise over run, because you want to put it in a fraction form, right? So then I go down 1 and then over 1. And there's my graph. And I like to point out, is the slope negative or positive, Taylor?
Negative.
Therefore, if the slope is negative, the line should be going that direction, and it is going in that direction. Does anyone have questions on number 3? Speak now, forever hold your peace.
Is B
Emily, do you have a question? You're sitting there laughing at me. I don't know if you're laughing because you're lost or because I'm strange. Okay, since she didn't answer, I'm going to assume she's lost.
She's laughing.
I'm not lost.
I know, I'm just kidding. Okay, Michaela, you have a question?
Yeah, so B is like the Y.
Y. It's the y-intercept.
So if it was 1, then it would like be up 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's where your graph, your line, is going to cross that y-axis. Good question. All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to number 5. Okay, now I want y'all to look at this. Michael, read the directions, please.
Not change equation, move this one.
Okay, I want y'all to look in your books. You see A, B, C, and D. They're just a bunch of graphs. No numbers or anything on there. So you're going to have to use what's called common sense,
Yeah.
which is a scary thought for this class, but you have to use common sense. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Gabby, I didn't mean to offend you. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8, they have different equations there. You have to match each graph with one of those equations by using common sense. Looking at first of all, I would look at your y-intercept first, because that's always first, according to Cecilia. And then look at the slope and just kind of, again, use common sense. So 5 has an equation of y equals 2x minus 1. So, Michael, what is my y-intercept for this equation?
Negative.
Okay, so my y-intercept is -1. Michaela, what is my slope?
2.
That's right. +2. So now what you need to do is look at those 4 graphs, Gabby, and figure out which one has a slope, has a y-intercept of possible -1 and then a slope of +2. Keep in mind, is the slope positive or negative, boys and girls?
Negative. Oh wait, positive.
The slope is positive, So if you had this memorized, you would know this process of elimination, how the line should be looking if the slope is positive. So that would help eliminate some of them. So Gabby, do you have a guess?
C.
She is correct. C is the answer. Does everyone see why C? Okay. Everyone see why C is the answer? If you don't, let me know. Everyone see it? I'm just keep going and going. Okay. Very good, Gabby. Let's look at number 7. Wit. Y equals negative 2x plus 1. Alright, so we know that our y-intercept is 1 and our slope is negative 2. Oh, look, a negative slope. If you had those notes memorized, you would know right then and there which direction that line is supposed to be going. But again, if you don't, because I had trouble memorizing that stuff, then you can still look at your y-intercept, which is first, and your slope, and figure that out.
Your slope is M.
Uh-huh. So Wit, do you know which graph goes with that equation?
Kids have a fear of being mean to each other. They just call each other dummies.
No.
I'm gonna go see the door.
No, you're not. Just stare at them.
Oh, they're gone.
So Wit, look at your intercept is positive 1. So that should help you right there eliminate 2 of them, right? Because the dots are in the positive range, right? Now, if your slope is negative 2, and it would look something like this, negative 2 over 1, which one of those 2 would be going down and over?
D.
Okay, so D, where is the y-intercept? Net is on D. See the dot on D? Is it negative or positive?
The dot.
Are you looking at D? The y-intercept and D, is it negative or positive?
Like on the graph,
Uh-huh.
I don't see the dot. There is no dot.
Okay, where is it crossing the y-axis? In the negative side of y or the positive?
The negative.
But what's your y-intercept for your equation?
Positive.
So where should your line be crossing the y-axis? On the positive side of y or the negative side of y?
The positive.
Okay, so which 2 graphs have a positive y-intercept?
B.
And?
A.
Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? A and B have positive y-intercepts. Do you see that? So now we know it's not C and D because those had negative y-intercepts. Does everyone see that? If you don't, you need to let me know now. Okay, let me see your book. I'm going to show y'all. Okay. Let's look. Here we go. There's your graphs. Now look right here. Where the blue line crosses the y, that's your y-intercept, yes? This line crosses the y right here. Is that positive y or negative y?
Positive.
Positive, because down here is negative, right? How about right here? Crosses right here. Is that positive or negative y?
Positive.
Bingo. How about right here?
Negative.
It crosses the y and negative, and how about right here?
Negative.
So if you have a positive y-intercept, then you know it's got to be one of these two. Does that make sense? So, like, just for grins, look at number 6. The y-intercept is a negative 1. So, Emily, which two graphs could it be? If the y-intercept is negative, you don't know? Which two graphs have a negative y-intercept? Yeah.
B and D.
B has a negative y-intercept?
She's thinking of the line thingy.
No. I'm talking about, that's why I was looking around when I was explaining this. I know who was watching. Y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Look right here. It crosses right here. Emily, is that the positive side of y or the negative side of y? That's right. How about right here where the line crosses? Bingo. So if this was a negative y-intercept, could it be this? Look at these. They cross the y-axis on the negative side of y, correct? So then if this negative 1 was your y-intercept, which it is, it can only be on the negative side of the y-axis, correct? So then this is positive. This y, that means your graph is crossing the y-axis, this line right here, at a positive point, which can only be A and B. Do you see that now? All right, y'all have some IXL links. That's why I assigned them. Okay, so now we've determined, because now look right here. Remember this one that Gabby did? Her y-intercept was negative 1. So she knew it had to be C or D because these are the only lines that cross the y on the negative side. Then she had to determine, based on her slope, which one it was. In this case, for width, it's a positive y-intercept. So it has to be one of these two because these are the only two graphs that cross the y in a positive spot. This is positive y, this is negative y. Positive y, negative y. So now Whit needs to look at the slope, which is negative 2 over 1. So Whit needs to start at the y-intercept and go down 2 and over 1 to see which graph it is. So which one could it be?
B.
You're correct. Because if it's negative 2 and positive 1, it would be going down and then to the right. This one would be going down and to the left, and that wouldn't work. So your answer for 7, here you go, is B.
Even if you did 2 over negative 1, it'd still be the same thing.
Yeah. Hopefully everyone understands that. Any questions? If you don't ask questions, then I assume everyone in here understands and I move on. All right. Number 9. All you have to do is write a B.
I know, but I still have to circle the B and write negative 2 over 1.
No, I did that earlier. All right. All you need to do is write B. Because I had already written that stuff a long time ago. All right. Number 9. Aiden. Next victim. It says graph each equation using its slope and y-intercept. Okay, so number 9 is y equals negative 2x plus 4. Okay, so like I've been telling y'all, write down your formula right there with it to help remind you what the slope is and what the y-intercept is. So Aiden, what is the formula again? Y equals mx plus b. I would write that down every time. So, Aiden, what is your y-intercept?
4.
So your y-intercept is 4. What is your slope?
-2.
-2. Or we can write it as -2 over 1 so that we can remember to do rise over run. Okay, so Aiden, which one do I do first, the slope or the y-intercept? That's right. This, I'm putting a star because it is first, the first dot. All right, go ahead, draw your Cartesian plane. Is your X and your Y. Aiden, as soon as you do that, tell me what I need to do first. Talk me through it.
So you need to plot the y-intercept.
And that is 4, so it's a positive 4. So, and this will help y'all with what we just did on 5 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my first dot is going to be right there. You plot your y-intercept because that's where the graph will cross the y-axis. And it's positive, so it goes up here. If it was negative, it'd be down there. And then you start there and you do your slope. So Aiden, tell me what to do. I'm starting right here on my y-intercept.
You go down 2,
And then you go 1 to the right. Down 2 and 1 to the right. And then you connect your dot. It's plural. Any questions? I sometimes tell my students to do more than 2 dots because it makes it more accurate. You may want to get into that practice. Any questions? Let's do another. Number 11. Y equals -1 over 4x plus 5. All right, Michael. What's my formula?
Y equals mx plus b.
Okay, so I'm going to write that right underneath so that it helps me to remember what is what. Okay, so what is my y-intercept?
5.
Very good. Y-intercept is 5. And that's my first thing. I'm putting a star to remind me that that's the first thing I'm going to do. And then what is your slope?
-1 over 4.
That's right. And remember, this is rise over run. Now we can graph it. All right. So, Michael, what's the first thing I'm going to put on my graph?
The y-intercept.
And it's positive, so I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then what do I do?
And then you do the slope.
From that spot, and tell me how to do it.
You go down 1 and you go to the right 4 times.
Okay, he's correct. You're going to go right on 4 because it's positive. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'll let y'all catch up. There you go. And you can even go down and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Again. To make it even more accurate. Any questions? None? And when you're done, put your pencil down so I know you're done, and then we have 2 more and I'm setting you free. Everyone is done. Okay, number 15. It says write each equation in slope-intercept form, then state the slope and y-intercept. So you've got 3 things to do here. 3 things to do. Emily, 3x plus y equals 5. Okay, so Emily, what is the slope-intercept form? What does it look like? Yeah, what's our formula? Yes, ma'am. Now, what we need to do is make this equation look like this one. So, Emily, how do I do that? How do I get y all by itself on this side of the equal sign, and then the x here, and then the regular number here? What? Okay, where's the y in your equation? Is it on the correct side?
Yeah, but I gotta subtract the 3.
That's right, the whole thing, right? That's right. You're correct. You're going to subtract that whole thing because the y you don't have to move because it's already on the left side of the equal sign. So let's get rid of this guy, put him over there. Now, does the negative 3x go before or after the 5? Look at your formula. That's right. You want to put it before because that's the way the formula is. So there's one of your answers. Good job. Now it also says what is the slope. So tell me what your slope is. Which one? What letter in your formula represents the slope? What?
Can't you just move the y equals? I mean, can't you just make the 3 negative and then just move it behind the y equals?
That's what we did. We moved this to the other side of the equal sign. Yeah, it was positive here, so we have to do the opposite, which is negative. You got it? Okay, so Emily, what letter is your slope?
Well, you're saying it's not 5, so it's 3.
Okay, but you have to remember that M is your slope. Okay? So then your slope is negative 3. So then what's your y-intercept?
5.
That's right. And there's your other answer. Any questions? It's just going to take practice, and the IXLs will definitely help. One more, and then I'm setting you free. 19. Cecilia. Because I know you got this. I'm right there with you, Cecilia. 8x minus 3y equals 9. Now, Cecilia, what is it supposed to look like? What's my formula look like? So wait, what? So we need it to look like y equals mx plus b. Okay, so the y needs to be on the left side all by itself of the equal sign. So sit back, look at your equation. Here's my equal sign. What do I need to move first? The y? Okay, because the y is already on the left side of the equal sign, correct? And that's where it's supposed to be here, so we don't need to move the y. So we're going to move the 8x, right? How do I do that? That's right. Since it's a positive 8x, we're going to subtract it. And I'm left with negative 3y equals, now does the negative 8x come before or after the 9? Huh? That's right. Good job. Now, is the y all by itself like it is in the formula? So what do I need to move?
The 3, negative
And how do I do that?
put it, divide it,
Wait, yeah, what'd you say?
divide it.
Yeah, because if we're multiplying, we're going to divide it by every term. Every single term to get rid of it. She's correct. And now I'm left with y equals, now Cecilia, that's a negative over negative, which becomes, so it's 8 over 3x, and then 9 divided by negative 3 is minus 3. This, don't look at it as an improper fraction because we're doing slopes, right? So it stays just like that. So there's that equation. So now, Cecilia, what is your slope?
M is 8 over 3.
Perfect.
D is negative 3.
And B is negative 3.
Is this the last one?
That's the last one. Any questions? Good job, Cecilia. Does that help? Cecilia, did that help? Good. All right, you guys are doing page 248 to 249. You're doing numbers 6 through 28 even. That's 12 problems. Yep, 6 through 28 even. Oh, this should be fun. Honors. You're going to do 10 through 28 even, plus 38 and 39. This is due Thursday.
Oh, I
We
don't
better get started.
I
IXL is due next Thursday. I'm tearing my paper up.
wanted to do 6 through